Welcome to Shastikara's Astrological series. This is the presentation about Transit Sun and Transit Saturn combination in one particular Rasi or house, which is Capricorn or Makara. Once in every 27 to 29 years, between minimum is 27 and the maximum is 29. Once during this period, Transit Saturn enters Capricorn, Makara, and it owns Makrara, Capricorn, it owns Aquarius. So when Transit Saturn is in its own house and its bitter enemy, Transit Sun, when it enters the Makara Rasi, so something major event happens all the time. And this was something that I noticed it since 1960 onwards. The first time between 1961 and 64, Transit Sun was in Capricorn, and the second time was in 1991 to 93, and the third time is in 2020 till 2023. So these are the three events that I took it, and I started analyzing what are the major impact when Transit Saturn enters Makara, and when Transit Sun enters Makara and Transit Saturn is already in Makara. In this presentation, I'm using the birth chart of the Republic of India as an example, and I'm trying to explain the combination of two transit planets, how it impacted the country during the 61st event was in 61 to 64. The second event was from 91 to 93. The third event was from 2020 till 2023. This is January 2022. So I analyzed from January 2020 till January 2022. That is 2 years of analysis. And at the end of the presentation, I will try to predict, based upon the previous two events, what possibility can happen to the country India before December 2022, because in January of 2023, Transit Saturn leaves a Capricorn and enters Aquarius. So I'm hoping that you will like this presentation and you will learn something from this presentation. Please make sure that this presentation is exclusively for educational purposes only. So do not interpret this as a final word, and please use your common sense before putting any comments in the YouTube when I post it on YouTube. Thank you very much and enjoy the presentation. Welcome to Shastikara's Astrological series. Let me start analyzing the birth chart of Republic of India first and foremost. When you look at the birth chart, the date of birth was 15th August 1947, and the time of birth was 1 minute after midnight. And when you look at it, the very first thing that I noticed here, which I kept saying in all my previous presentations when I had analyzed the country's birth chart, is that I do see the Kala Sarpa combo for the country. So which indicates that there will be so many ups and downs in the country during it. So, and most of these ups and downs will be related to the position of Saturn and Transit Saturn and position of Transit Rahu. That is for sure, and that's what I had proven in my previous presentations, how the country's situations had changed economically, politically, based upon these two transit planets. And now, if you look at it, the second thing is Rahu residing in the first house from Rashi Lagna, and Mars residing in the second house from Rashi Lagna, and there are 5 planets are co-joined in the third house from Rashi Lagna, of which the third house Lord Moon is one among them, and Sun, the fourth house Lord Sun, is co-joined with the third house Lord. The second and the fifth house Lord Mercury is co-joined with the third house Lord. The Lagnadipati and the sixth house Lord is co-joined with the third house Lord, and above all, the ninth and 10th house Lord Saturn is co-joined with all of these 4 planets. So when you look at it, the first thing that you see is Saturn and Sun are bitter enemies. They are both are co-joined in the same house. That's the first thing. And then, according to Bihurugu Sarla Paddhati, wherever Saturn resides, he shouts that he owns that house too. So apart from the 9th and 10th houses, the 7th and 8th houses from Chandra Lagna and the 9th and 10th houses from Rashi Lagna, Saturn is yelling that it owns the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna and that he is the first house lord from Chandra Lagna. So now that Saturn is shouting so high, none of the other planets who are strong enough, according to Graha Yuddha, none of the other planets are stronger than Saturn. So Saturn is now the emperor of that house too. Now being the emperor of that house, and he is co-joined with his bitter enemy Sun, one thing for sure he will do is that he will have a frequent fight with his enemy Sun, and he will also try to spoil the house. Generally, according to Biru Sarla Paddhati, he spoils the house next to his residence, which is the 4th house from Rashi Lagna and 2nd house from Chandra Lagna. Unfortunately, that is owned by his bitter enemy Sun. So Saturn is for sure going to spoil that particular house, irrespective of what that house deals with. So from destiny, from Chandra Lagna, Rashi Lagna, 4th house is weather and agriculture. That's the reason why whenever Saturn transit Saturn, based upon the transit Saturn's position, you see the frequent weather issues and problems with the agriculture or any other agriculture related products. You see a lot of problems for the country is because of that reason. The second thing is from Chandra Lagna, 2nd house deals with the banking sector and trading sector, and you had already seen that when transit Saturn was in Capricorn, I think it was that Harshad Mehta SBI scam that was happened when transit Saturn was in Capricorn. I remember that something similar to that happening. And so overall, when you look at the birth chart of India, the very first thing that one has to see is the position of transit Saturn and also the position of transit Rahu. These are the only two transit planets that govern or that decides the future of the country. Because the topic of this presentation is the transit Sun and transit Saturn combination in Capricorn or Makara, I did go backwards and found out that there are 3 events that happen. Transit Saturn enters Makara Rasi once in every 27 to 29 years, and it stays there for minimum 2.5 years and a maximum of 3 years. And during these 3 years of time, transit Sun enters Makara Rasi minimum 3 times. Just minimum is 3 times, and rarely it will be the 4th time. It never happens. Rarely it never happens 2 times, and it never happens for the 4th time. When it happens, it is a unique combination or unique planetary situation. The very first time that I noticed was in 1961, because if I take 30 years back, it is 1930. That's the British Empire was there ruling the country. So that means India did not become republic at that time. So I did not consider it. The very first time the transit Saturn entered Makara Rasi after India got independence was on 9th October 1961, and it stayed there for until the end of January 1964. And when you look at it, there are 3 times that transit Sun entered it in 62, 63 and 64, almost in the same period, January, February, starting in January and ending in February. And during these 2.5 to 3 years of time, I found out using Wikipedia that the very first thing that happened was Jawaharlal Nehru became the de facto Prime Minister of India in April of 1962. That is after transit Sun left Makara Rasi. You got the change in continued the same Prime Minister de facto. And then another thing I noticed is that before that there is when transit Sun was somewhere in Sagittarius, which is the 12th house from Capricorn, there was an Indo-China war started in October and started in somewhere in October and November of 1962. Even though it started in October, I did after doing some research, I found out that some sorts of indications happened somewhere in February or March of 1962, and finally the war was declared in October of 1962. Now when you look at it, the first time when Transit Sun entered Makrara was at that time Saturn Mahadasa was running and Rahu Antardasa is running. As I said in my introduction, Transit Saturn and Transit Rahu are the only two planets that decide what happens for this country. That is period. No, all other planets impacts are minimal. The major impact is only from these two planets. Since it is the Saturn Mahadasa which started in 1946, means when the country got independence, it was a Saturn Mahadasa that started. Dharmasthanadipati Saturn was the one that started the Mahadasa, and Rahu Antardasa started in 1960 April and lasted till 1963 of February. So what you can see is that it was during this time, during the Rahu Antardasa, that the major events that I had documented here happened it. And if you look at it, the Rahu Antardasa and Mars Pratyantardasa, Mars is the violent planet here, and it was that violent planet that has initiated or made the country go for a war with China. And that's what you see here. It lasted, I think, until February of 1963 or March of 1963, somewhere there. That time it stopped it. So what you can see is that after 1963, once the Rahu Antardasa has completed, and it is the Saturn Antardasa. After Rahu is Jupiter Antardasa. So Rahu and Jupiter Antardasa happen. You haven't said there's no major thing happen. And yeah, by the way, it's during the Jupiter Antardasa, if I remember correctly, that Prime Minister Jawaharlal, the then Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru died, and the country had a vacuum when it comes to the leadership, and they had selected Lal Bahadur Shastri as the Prime Minister, acting Prime Minister for the country somewhere in October of 1964, if I remember, somewhere of October of 1964. So that's exactly what happens is that with this combination, before the end of the two and a half or third year of the Transit Saturn's staying in Makara, before leaving or as soon as it enters in, during the whole 2.5 to 3 years of time, for sure something unexpected event is sure to happen. And what the event could be is primarily decided by the Vimsottari Dasa, the Mahadasa and Antardasas during that time. The second time that Transit Saturn entered Capricorn was in December of 1990 and stayed there almost for 3 years. That's a tough part, is to stay for 3 years. So during this 3 years of stay there, the Transit Sun, as I said earlier, the minimum is 3 times. So all the 3 times it was there. And if you look at it, this was the worst period that the country has gone through. And the Venus Mahadasa was running at that time. Venus is the Lagnadipati. So when the Lagnadipati Mahadasa is running, whatever happens will happen. If it is a human being, we say it as the self Tanusthanamo, and for the country, it is the country itself. And because Venus has co-joined in with the 4 other planets, Moon, Saturn, Sun and Mercury, and Venus is also the 6th house lord from Rashi Lagna, the things had gone very bad for the country. Remember, 6th house deals with the debts and public health. And during this is the time, as soon as the Transit Saturn entered Makara Rasi, and somewhere when Transit Sun was in Makara, it was during that period that, number one, the economic the economic crisis, the country has gone through the economic crisis the same way it had gone through in 1961 and 63. The country had gone through the economic crisis. The rupee got devaluated, and I think it was in May of 1991 The then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated. So there was a political chaos and political vacuum. And then again, just like between 1961 and 64, when Prime Minister Nehru died, the country was in political chaos and vacuum was created in the leadership. Then they picked up Lal Bahadur Shastri the same way in 1990 till 1993. Rajiv Gandhi died and the country was in chaos, and then they picked up PV Narasimha Rao as the Prime Minister. And another thing is this: in 1992, when Transit Sun entered Capricorn and almost left it, another thing was the financial instability because of the Harshad Mehta scam, 500 crore scam, and illegal use of loopholes in the banking system. And then the Indian rupee value got devaluated, and the exchange rate collapsed. And unfortunately, it was the same time while the country is going through this financial economic crisis. The then opposition party had started the Ram Mandir issue in Ayodhya, and which has created another instability both politically and economically in the country. And while these things are all going on, the terrorist activity, the terrorist bombing in 1993 Mumbai happened. It's on March 1993. If you look at it, February of 1993, Transit Sun left Capricorn, and somewhere in March, exactly 1 month later, the event happened. So what I can interpret here by looking at the events and the position of the transit planets is that when Transit Sun, when it enters Capricorn and co-joins with Transit Saturn, it stays for only 30 days and then it leaves. So when it leaves, something major event gets initiated. We may see it or we may not see it when Transit Sun leaves Capricorn, but whatever the major event that got initiated, that will be visible after February of whatever the year it is. So the same thing happened in 1991. After February of 1991, we saw the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's assassination, and after February of 1992, we saw the rupee collapsed, exchange rate for the rupee collapsed, the 500 crore illegal scam, Harshad Mehta scam came out, and then the Ram Mandir issue came out. And again, after February of 1993, we saw the Mumbai bombings. So these are the all the events that happened in that year. The most important thing to notice here is that all these events might have got initiated when Sun was with Saturn. That means in January and February of that year. But the outcome is visible to the society after February. And if you look at it, it's a Mercury Mahadasa is running. It's the Mercury Venus Mahadasa is running, and it's a Venus Antaradasa. That's when you have seen the major changes, and then comes the Sun Antaradasa. That's when you had seen another issue. So both Venus and Sun are in one of the 5 planets that's co-joined with Saturn in Cancer, the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna. And when Transit Saturn is in Capricorn, its direct aspect is on the Cancer, the 3rd house from Rashi Lagna. That is the reason why you see natal Saturn in Cancer, you see Transit Saturn in Capricorn. They both are looking at each other. So the power of Saturn got doubled, and whatever the negativity that is supposed to happen gets exponential because of that impact. So the only thing that is visible is based upon the Mahadasa, which planets Mahadasa is running and which planets Antardasa is running. And if the Mahadasa planet and the Antardasa planet is one among these 5, that is Moon, Saturn, Mercury, Sun or Venus, the impact is highly visible. This is the last event that latest event, which when Transit Saturn entered Capricorn on 24th of January 2020, and it's going to stay there for the whole 3 years. Remember, very rarely it stays for 3 years, and during this time, it is 3 years. Unfortunately, Transit Sun enters 4 times Makara. The 3 times for 30 days each, and that is from in 15th January 2020 till February of 2020, then the same in 2021, the same in 2022. Unfortunately, and which is a rare event, rare occurrence, that Transit Sun enters Makara on 14th January 2023 and will co-join with Transit Saturn until 17th of January 2023. That means exactly for 4 days, 3 to 4 days, they both stay together, which is extremely odd. So the very first thing that I would say is this odd combination is not a good indication from a astrological perspective. So let's go and see which Mahadasa is running. It's a moon antar Mahadasa is running. Like I said in the previous one, moon is one among those 5 planets. So the moon Mahadasa doesn't seem good. And when you look at it from Saturn, Antaradasa is from 2019 November all the way till 2021 June. And everybody, those who are in India or those who had heard about the situation in the country, can understand how bad it is because of the moon Mahadasa and Saturn Antaradasa when it comes to the country, the public health, the financial situation, the political situation, everything. And then comes the Mercury, 2021 June till 2022 November. It's a Mercury Antaradasa, but Mercury is also part of those 5 planets. And Mercury is from Rashi Lagna. Mercury is the 2nd and 5th house lord. So from 2021 December, June all the way till 2022 November, one thing that's highly possible to happen is the impact on the 2nd house and the 5th house from Rashi Lagna. 2nd house means banking and trading sectors. 5th house means arts, entertainments and sports sector. So you have already seen how bad it was. It's in the 2021 June till 2021 December, how bad it was for these industries, and that's exactly what is going to happen, continue to happen all the way till 2022 November. So from basically what I would predict here at this point, to the best of my astrological knowledge, is that any banking sector, trading in the sense imports and exports, and then arts and music, entertainment and sports, these are the 5 industries that will continue to see the worst impact of this combination all the way until November of 2022. And then comes the Ketu Mahadasa. Fortunately, it was Ketu Mahadasa Antardasa that is coming after November of 2022. And to be honest, whatever is going to happen in 2023 January 14th till 17th of January 2023 is completely unpredictable. And now looking at the major events that were recorded in 2020 and 2021, that was 2 full fiscal year, calendar years. The only thing you can see is the COVID-19 pandemic and that its impact on the public health and the financial impact on arts, entertainments and sports industry. So this is what I noticed as of January 2022. Now we still have 10 more months, that is November of 2022, means approximately 10 more months to go. So what is possible in these 10 more months is the number one, the impact to continue for banking, trading sectors. The impact will continue for arts, music, entertainment and sports industries. These 2 are sure to happen, and the possibility is that there will be some sort of a change in government or a leadership, and this I think will happen after Transit Rahu moves from from Pisces or Mesa or Meena to Aries, Mesha, somewhere in March or April of 2022. That's when Transit Rahu enters Mesha Rasi, and Mesha Rasi is the 10th house from Chandra Lagna and the 12th house from Rashi Lagna. So, and when it enters there in March and April of 2022, things starts to have a little bit of some sort of a chaos will start to happen. And because it is the 12th house from the destiny and it is looking at the 6th house, I would say that something related to public health or major losses of the public life is possible somewhere in March and April of 2022, and that because of that event, the other industries will have a problem. We'll see the impact of it, and overall, uh, something major can be anticipated related to public health, and that might result in change in leadership or change in the government too, either of one, but I can't guarantee the second one. But the changing government or changing, but I'm sure that there will be some sort of a change in leadership, because sun is there. Sun, transit sun will be moving over in March/April. It will be coming and co-joining transit Rahu in Rasi, Mesha Rasi. So sun is the leader, and here it is the fourth house lord from Rashi Lagna and second house from Chandra Lagna. So some sort of a change in leadership is highly possible in March and April of 2022, and the impact of this combination will last all the way till November of 2022. Now that I had completed the whole analysis of the India's birth chart and analyzed the previous two events, that is in 1961 to 63 and 1991 to 1993, and a little bit of 2 years of the event, that is between 2020 January till 2022 January, let me conclude my presentation. The first and the foremost thing, that the commonality that I found in all the three events, 3 times that when transit Saturn was in Capricorn and transit Sun entered Capricorn and stayed there for 30 to 40 days. The first commonality I found is some sort of a political and financial chaos. The country has seen it. In 1961-62, we had the India-China war, and then there's a lot of other financial, political, and economical issues that happened in 1961 to 64. And then in 1991 to 1993, we had the collapse of the financial situation, economic situation in India, for the country India, and the rupee got devaluated. And the most other important thing was that then there was a nationwide communal rights because of, what is that called, Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. And the most unfortunate is the bombings, terrorist bombings in Mumbai. So this has created the political and economic uncertainty for the country. Another thing that I found between the two events, the event between 1961 and 64 and the event between 1991 and 1993, is as soon as between 1991 and 1993, as soon as when transit Saturn was in Capricorn and Sun entered Capricorn in 1991 January and left in 1991 February. I think it was in May of 1991 that the Prime Minister of the country, Mr. Rajiv Gandhi, got assassinated. So there was the elected Prime Minister, was no more the Prime Minister, and then the country has chosen someone as their temporary Prime Minister. The same thing happened between 1961 and 64. The elected Prime Minister was, de facto elected Prime Minister was Jawaharlal Nehru. He was there until 1964 February, I think, something like that. Then after he died, we got Lal Bahadur Shastri as the Prime Minister of India. So these are the two commonalities that I found in the two events. And then in the third thing is, in the year 2020 to 2023, just like I had noticed it in 1961 to 63, 64 and 1991 to 93, the country has gone through a lot of financial economic stress. And the biggest impact was the arts, music, sports, entertainment industries. These are the major impact. And the common public health became a big challenge for the country, and for the leaders handling the loss of mass people deaths is become a challenge. And while these challenges are going on, between 2020 till 2022 January, there is a lot of political instability started in the country, of which one of that political instability was the farmers agitation. I don't know when it started, but I do remember seeing some sort of a political instability for the current government due to that agitation, farmers agitation. So just like it happened in 61 to 64 or 91 to 93, even in 2020 till 2023, the same events had repeated. That's what I want to tell you. The only thing that hasn't happened till now is the change of the leadership. That's so I'm think between January of 2022 and December of 2022, if the way the events had repeated in the past two cycles, if the same way it gets repeated in this cycle also, there is a high possibility. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I'm just saying that based upon the way the things happened in the past, by analyzing that, what I'm saying right now is that there's a high possibility for the current government to have a change in their leadership. And is that going to happen before February of 2022? I doubt it. But between February 2022 and December 2022, the chances are extremely high. Just for your clarification, Transit Rahu is another guy. He is going to enter the 12th house, which is Mesha or Aries, somewhere in March and April of 2022. And if you look at it, that is the 12th house from Rashi Lagna and the 10th house from Chandra Lagna. 10th house always talks about the leader and the political stability of the government. So, and from the 10th house, when it is looking at the 5th house, from the 10th house from Chandra Lagna, when it is looking at the 3rd house from Chandra Lagna, 3rd house is, again, if I remember correctly, again, it deals with transportation, a lot of other railways, all of other things. So overall, something is possible with respect to the current government, and there is a high possibility for change in leadership. I'm hoping that just like the way the things happened this time also, there will be some sort of a change in leadership, and that change in leadership would benefit the country just like the way it did it in, I don't know about how it benefited the country in 1964, from 1964 onwards, but I did see it from 1993, 1994, when India, PV Narasimha Rao came and released, and Manmohan Singh as the finance minister. They both together has changed so many things that today India became one of the top software export promotion zone country, and a lot of other foreign entities entering in India and start having their businesses. It's all because of the initiatives that the then Prime Minister PV Narasimha Rao and the then Finance Minister Manmohan Singh who had started it. It is according to my opinion. I'm not saying that this is exactly why it happened, but in my view, their initiatives had created all what we are seeing today in India. So in the same way, I'm hoping that some change in the government will initiate some new programs or some new laws that will make the country go more advanced down the road. Thank you very much for watching my video, and hope that you like this video. Thanks a lot and have a good day.